Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Today we're going to be starting a series that Reverend Michael will be completing throughout the month, and it's Prosperity in All Ways. And today I get to talk about how we are heirs to the kingdom is in the realm of finances and money. Isn't that the coolest thing? I get to talk about money right up here. That's so cool. You don't really think that, do you? No. But you will, because I'm gonna tell you why in just a moment. But I also wanted to tell you about the rest of the series. Next week, Reverend Michael will be talking about relationships, prosperity and abundance in relationships. And then he'll follow the third week with experiences, like how to really feel the abundance and joy of life through all of the experiences of life. And then the fourth week will be vocation and work. That kind of how do we serve the world? How do we use our gifts? So you're going to want to be here for the rest of the month and hear more about how you can have prosperity in all ways. But today, looking at heirs to the kingdom and talking about this, the idea here is heirs to the kingdom may be a term that you're either unfamiliar with because you weren't trained up in that. Maybe you didn't have a church growing up. Some of you may already have ideas about that from previous teaching and things that you've learned growing up. And when we talk about the kingdom of God, when we talk about kingdom, it is often that we just get the picture of the angels and the harps and heaven and kind of a place you get to if you're really good. And we sort of have conflated that with the kingdom of God as someplace far away in the future, maybe, you know? And the truth is that it is never what the kingdom of God meant. It certainly isn't what Jesus was talking about. The kingdom of God, as Jesus said famously, and I believe it was Luke and Matthew, where he says, you know, the kingdom of heaven is all around you. It's in your midst. It's laid out. It's laid out all around you, but men do not see it. The kingdom of God is here. The kingdom of God is a part of it, and we are heirs to the kingdom. We are those who are living in the divine flow and do not know it and pretend like it isn't true and buy into the myths of life and the social myths and perhaps even the ideas that family members have taught us and the way that attitudes that they had about finances and about money and about riches and about who's rich and who's poor and why that is and what that means about those of us who find ourselves in one or two of those categories or someplace in between. All of our ideas about money. And it's so weird because you know what? We're in charge of it. Did you know that? We're in charge of that. Money doesn't own us, but we act like it does. What is money, actually? From The Practical Visionary by Corinne McLaughlin and Gordon Davidson, this is what they write. Money is a neutral instrument for measuring exchange based on a community agreement. We all came to agreement somewhere along the line that decided what this piece of paper is worth, what its value is, and then we arranged products and stuff that people want and assigned a value that fluctuates and changes. There's nothing static about it unless we decide that. And how many of these I need to take that and take it home with me. And I give this to you so you can use for the stuff you want. That's all it is. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tracking and scoring system, they say, for production and transactions among people. Money is an energy that communicates between material things and facilitates human relationships. It has the values we each give it through our attitudes and how we use it. Money is our tool. It is not our master. This is our choice. This is how we choose to be. This is how we view ourselves in the world and the value that we give to the things that we have. Let me also say that money is not the root of all evil. I could go into an exegesis of the Bible and tell you why it was misunderstood and how it's been used, but it is already sort of concrete in our social consciousness. There is already that sense that money's a little bit unholy, right? And the minister really should not be using the platform to talk about money ever, really. It makes us all a little uncomfortable, right? But money is a tool. It is not of itself evil or good. It is how we wield it. It is the purpose that we set it into motion. It's the consciousness that we use. But it also harbors, because of the ways it can be used and the ways in which we've experienced it, it also harbors the shadows of the human side of greed, fear of lack, power and control, and dysfunctional ways of expressing our love. I know of family systems where usually the father makes the money and doles out money to those and rewards the ones who do the things he likes and the ones he loves and the way he gives love. And if you do something that displeases him, he withholds and he takes the money away. It's a give and take. It's not just men that do that. It is a human ego thing that thinks that somehow this is my way of showing you my love, and I'm going to hold it out when you do what I like and pull it back when you don't. That's where we get all this mixed feelings about money and about how much we have, how much we think we should have, how much we need, and how much we have lost or given away or been foolish with, and all of the feelings attached to that. But it's just as, Corinne McLaughlin and Gordon Davidson say, it's just sort of a scorekeeper of our lives if we look at it that way. Sort of, how did I get here? Where have I been? Money also has the capacity to give us a sense of security if we think we ever have enough. Oh boy, that's an entirely different lesson on an entirely different thing. What is enough? I'm going to set that aside. We're not even going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about more than enough is what we're going to talk about. But if we look at money as giving us a sense of security, we have a number of mechanisms in place where we use money and try to protect ourselves against the vagaries and upset of the world. Case in point, insurance. The advice comes that we should resist buying insurance out of fear or anxiety or of a belief that insurance will keep me safe. Have enough coverage that is reasonable and responsible, and know that you are secure in God no matter what happens to your possessions. Now, what if judiciously decide what is enough coverage, what is insurance, and also in the same moment be at peace that we cannot predict the future and that insurance does not eliminate the vagaries of life. Hurricane Harvey. Don't we know? Insurance dulls some of the pain, but it doesn't take it all away, and it doesn't undo what we've been through. And life will come to us and through us. And all we need to know is that we are already safe because we will come out on the other side. And yes, we should be responsible. And yes, we make good decisions as best we can with what we have. And the rest we leave in the care of God. Eric Butterworth, in his book Spiritual Economics, talks about investing our money. He says, whatever you do in the way of investments, do it out of the consciousness of the divine flow. Keep yourself centered in God so that you do not flutter like a flag in the breeze when the Dow Jones report is published every day. Keep your faith in the continuity of God's ever-present substance, no matter what the condition of the market in general or your stock in particular. You see, it's both and. You are the keeper of the consciousness through which you make your decisions. You're understanding that you live in a divine flow. You do live in that little room that we were sitting in meditation, where the doors are open and the flow comes through. But we don't always pay attention to it. We don't reach out for it. We don't name it. We don't claim it. So often, we have sequestered ourselves away and have a limited understanding of what is enough or what is ours, what is the most we can have of good. We're in a divine flow. That's what the kingdom of God really is. It isn't the place with harps that we get to at some point in our life. It is a flow of love. It is a flow of possibility. And we are the ones who use those possibilities and take those chances, make those calculated risks to step out, to be creative, to think of some new idea, to be willing to try something, to be willing to be generous, to be willing to love, to be willing to serve, to be willing to let go and lose, because something greater might actually be on its way to me that I don't see yet, but I trust. Butterworth also talks about saving our money. He says, if you commence or continue in any program out of the thought that this nest egg will tide me over if something should happen, then you're engaging, he says, in an emergency consciousness. You may actually be creating an environment in which such things can happen. Save by all means, he says. It will enable you to avail yourself of positive opportunities that could come your way. But save not for emergencies. Think instead of the opportunities when they come, when they show up. You will have a little nest egg. You will have a little something to throw in or to risk or to try. It doesn't mean that something may indeed happen that requires you to replace the tire on your car or to fix the plumbing in your home. That will happen too. But you can't plan on that necessarily. And so the point here is that this is all part of your trust and falling into the divine flow and the trust that you're being cared for and protected, that you're being lifted. You will get through the other side. You will always be moving to the other side of whatever comes. And things will get lost and things will come and go because we know they do. And people will come and go too. But others will crowd the doorway and come through a heart that is open and willing to love. It is all about us and consciousness and what it is that we bring and how we live our lives. Retirement. Don't plan to withdraw from useful work for retirement. Plan on redirecting your energies away from the notion of working to make a living. Yes, you can do that. In fact, he says, do that today. Don't think about yourself working to make a living. You're working because you're giving from your heart, because you're giving your talents and your gifts in a way that is valued and necessary and serving. And you bring that energy behind whatever you do, and you become the most valued employee on staff. You become the one. You become the employer that people want to work with, because everything you do is a blessing, and you know what your value is, and you know what you're bringing to the world, and you do it with largesse and generosity and great love. And that is the most attractive, magnetizing thing you could be holding. The consciousness of security is what you want to cultivate, not the mechanisms that somehow make you secure or that put your money in places that you think you're impervious, because that's an illusion and it's not true. But what is true is that you're part of a limitless good, and that is the truth that we often overlook. Eric Butterworth says, it's important that you clearly understand this. You can't get a prosperity consciousness on the stock market. You can't achieve true security through insurance. And you won't get rich simply by saving your money. But if you work diligently to establish yourself in the consciousness of the divine flow of substance, actually get the feeling that you live in the boundless sea of affluence, that little room we entertained ourselves in, then by the steadying and supportive influence of this consciousness, your assets may surely grow through investment. Your affairs may be cared for by insurance, and your wisely planned savings become a vehicle for prosperity. Do you see? What comes first is your consciousness. And from your consciousness, what you do with it then becomes filled with that blessing. Do you see that? This is your power. You are the heirs to the kingdom. That's what you are here for. It's where you've come from. This is your identity. This is where your power is. This is what the world needs from you. Jesus taught on money. Yes, you're going to be thinking of the Caesar's coin, which side is Caesar on, and give the other side to God, whatever, however he said that. I'm not going to talk about that one. I'm going to talk about this one. This one is the parable of the talents. So here's the story. This is a parable Jesus taught, and this is what he said. He said, a rich man gave different amounts of talents. Talent is a certain amount of money. It was a certain amount. And so value, I can't think of how you say this, but you get it. So he gave 1 talent to somebody that he didn't have a lot of faith in. He gave 5 talents to somebody he thought had pretty good judgment. He gave 10 talents to somebody who had proven themselves before. So he gave varying amounts according to the judgment he had about their gifts. So while he was away, he wanted them to invest and to do some things with that money and see what they would do. So when he came back, he asked each of them to account for how they invested to multiply the value of his money. And when he had come back, he rewarded each of those others who had been given 10, doubled it. The one who'd been given 5 invested it and brought back 10 talents. The one who had 2 brought back and had 4. And so he's very pleased with all of these servants. And then there's the man who had received the 1 talent, who came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid. Pause for a moment. This is the moment he chooses to tell off his boss. When his boss comes back, you're a hard man. I know that you want everybody else to do the hard work. And yet he was afraid with his 1 to invest it. I don't know, just weird to me. But anyway, here we come back to it. So he says, and I was afraid because of this expectation that was being placed on him. And I went and hid your talent in the ground so nobody would take it. Look, there you have what is yours. I don't know about you, but I kind of feel like he just gave a huge slam to his boss. Don't you think so? I buried it in the ground because you're such a hard man who expects everything to come to you easy. So, buddy, here it is. That's what it sounds like to me. And his master says, you wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed, huh? So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. Now, those are the words of the story that Jesus taught. Now, here's the thing about Jesus. He never does what you think he's going to do. And you always get geared up thinking you know who the good one is and who's the right and who's wrong and what should happen. What's the moral answer to this? But Jesus was not a morality teacher. Jesus was a teacher of principle. He was a teacher of how to live in harmony with divine law, with God. And that is counterintuitive to the mind and to the human mind. It is something known only by the heart. And so what Jesus is basically saying, he uses this very difficult, thing because people's emotions are torn in hearing the story about who's right, who's wrong, who's the person to pity, who's the one to recoil from. And yet what Jesus is really saying is true. That those who have the consciousness to hold even a small amount, because how this man might have been was to have clearly seen, with scales dropped from his eyes, what his master wanted and what his master was about. But he could override that, and he could make a decision that he's been given charge of this one talent, and how he uses it, and how he invested it, and how he may have used it to bless and to share, may have actually produced more good and more benefit and more things to come back. There are ways that we can invest and to give and to share from a place and a consciousness of love that doesn't mean anything about the nature of the person that he was serving and trying to give quid pro quo back to in kind to the person that he thought he was in connection with. Instead, he could have been the one to have multiplied his 1 into 5. Do you see? Because it's the consciousness that we give. It's the consciousness that we use. For to everyone who has, more will be given and will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. Think of money as a spiritual asset. This again comes from the practical visionary from McLaughlin and Davidson. Money is actually spirit vibrating at a slow frequency. Money can be seen as both a particle like a coin or a bill, something something tangible you can hold in your hand, or as a wave. Just like the smallest, minutest particle of matter. It can be, it's thought of exactly the same way by scientists, that the smallest amount of matter right here that feels tangible at this level, at the subatomic, vacillates back and forth depending on conditions to be particle, something concrete in a way, or a wave. And they say that most of the time it actually exists as a wave and only occasionally as a particle. So if we thought of money that way, if we thought about the money you can grab hold of as a particle, as something standard there, but yet thought of money itself as a wave, as a flow, as limitless, as a river that flows at your feet. Because that's really what it is. Because how long do you hold on to the same dollar bill or the same coin? You don't. Most of us don't. Even if we save it, eventually we send it back into what? Circulation. Because it's a flow. And because that's really our choice, how to be part of the flow. You also must have sufficient love of yourself, others, your work, and life itself. You must be magnetic through your positive energy and faith in the abundance of the universe. This is where you grow your consciousness of how it is that you share and how is it that you spend what it is that comes into your possession. You are not meant to sacrifice. Sacrificing, again, is not holy. It's not spiritual. We thought it was. We were taught that it was. But sacrificing only is a withholding, and it really isn't a trust in God. It is more of a shame or a guilt place that we try to work that energy out. God doesn't want us to be ashamed, doesn't want us to be guilty. It's only meant to bring our attention to something we've done or said that transgresses our own moral or ethical code. And once we've been brought that attention, we have a new choice. Make it and move on. Make your amends, clean up your messes, move on, but don't live in guilt and shame and think that you constantly have to do penance for that. It's an old idea, and it didn't really work that great. I'll just say that. So here's the deal. Appreciate what you have. Be generous with others as an act of confidence in an abundant universe. Simone de Beauvoir said, "That's what I consider true generosity. You give your all, and yet you always feel as if it costs you nothing." I have heard countless times of volunteers in our own church who have told me they do what they do because they love it so much that they get so much back from it. They feel like they get so much more back than they give. That is a well-placed volunteer, and that is the energy that we should be operating out of. And when that ceases to be true, we need to find another avenue, another way to serve. We've completed that doorway. We need to move on to some other way that we can share and serve. And one other piece of advice: bless money as you donate it and as you use it to pay for goods and services. Blessing money helps purify it of negative influences and adds the positive, life-giving energy of spirit. Did you know you had that power? You could be the purifier of this money that comes through our hands. Didn't we think it was kind of, I don't know, a little dirty, a little tainted, a little messed up? It's been through who knows where this has been, right? We have those thoughts. We should be the ones clarifying it. We should be using our Holy Spirits to bless and to take that gift, the gift that came through us, what it represents, as the possibility for doing good in the world, and do good with it, and bless it, and send it out, so that every hand that follows, that touches this after me, is blessed and changed. And what if we used the particle of money that way, as well as the checks we sign, as well as the electronic transfers we make? All of that can come and bless in so many ways. Because why? It's all consciousness. So here it is. This is what it boils down to. Trust in God. Don't look for the big God moments or big, huge moments. They'll come. You'll get them. But pay attention to the small ones too, the little ones, the little blessings, the ways in which you feel your love in the moment, or where it comes to you unexpectedly, from unexpected places and sources. Trust in God. Trust in God in balance to every other smart, wise, shrewd thing you do with your money, but trust God overwhelmingly. Practice trust in God by giving what you have in all its forms, without attachment and with great love. Practice trust in God by giving what you have in all its forms, without attachment and with great love. Why? Because that's how God does it. And God is limitless love. And God is limitless life and limitless good. And so are you. Now do you see? And practice receiving good by appreciating with great love all that comes into your life. Notice it, pay attention to it, give thanks for it, celebrate it, send thank you notes, love and celebrate. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have an abundance. And from James chapter 2, verse 5, we go back to heirs of the kingdom in this. Listen, my beloved brothers, has not God chosen the poor of this world to be rich in faith and heirs of the kingdom which he promised to those who love him? Love. What a surprise. Love. It's your birthright. Spend it lavishly. God bless you all.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.